2 Corinthians 5:21. For our sake he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. This is one of the clearest summaries of the gospel in the entire Bible, and theologians have often called this verse the Great Exchange. Here's what that means. The Bible teaches that all of humanity is sinful, not just because we sin individually, but because we are represented by Adam, our federal head. Paul says in Romans 5:19, "For as by the one man's disobedience the many were made sinners, so by the one man's obedience the many will be made righteous." Adam stood in our place and he failed. His rebellion didn't affect him only, it affected all of us. So when we get to Romans 3, Paul can say both Jews and Greeks are under sin, Romans 3:9. And for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, Romans 3:23. That is the bad news. We are guilty by nature, by choice, and by representation. And what our sin deserves is the just judgment of God. But this is where 2 Corinthians 5:21 comes in. For our sake he made him to be sin who knew no sin. Jesus Christ lived a perfectly sinless life. He knew no sin. And yet, on the cross, God made him to be sin. Not in the sense that Jesus became sinful, but that he was counted as sin, treated as if he had lived our sinful lives. This is what we call imputation. Our sin credited to Christ. And this wasn't arbitrary, it was purposeful. Just as Adam represented us in his failure, Christ comes as the new and the better Adam, our true representative who succeeds in perfect obedience. And then Paul says, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. So here's the exchange. God treated Christ as if he were us, so that he could treat us as if we were Christ. Christ takes our sin, we receive his righteousness. And this righteousness is not something we produce, it's something credited to us. Christ, his perfect record, his flawless obedience is counted as ours. And how does that happen? Paul says, in him. This is the doctrine of union with Christ. By faith, we are spiritually united to Jesus, so that when God looks at us, he doesn't just see us in ourselves, he sees us in Christ. He regards us as righteous because we are represented by the righteous one. So if you zoom out, the Bible describes three great imputations. First, Adam's sin is credited to all of humanity. Second, our sin is credited to Christ on the cross. And third, Christ's righteousness is credited to all who believe. That's the great exchange. And this is why the gospel makes sense against the backdrop of our sin. Romans 1-3 makes it clear we are under sin, accountable to God, and deserving of judgment. But in Christ, everything changes. So here's the question. Are you still trying to stand before God on your own record? Or are you trusting in Christ? Because the good news of the gospel is this. You don't need to clean yourself up. You don't need to earn righteousness. Christ has already accomplished it. And for all who trust in him, you are counted as righteous fully, freely, and forever. That is the great exchange.